So, oh geez, back to the old. Have to readjust the camera every time for whatever reason. Um, Friday was 2 years. Um, and you know, while I respect her decision and still don't understand it, and I've kind of stopped trying to. Somewhere, I don't remember. I stopped trying to push through her notes that she wrote that night, fiction, whatever. I think she was trying to write. She was trying to sketch out lines of a story from everything that I can see, and that she was interested in. She was always interested in trying to find some way to do something that people found valuable, whatever. I never found that all that important in my own life. Like, at, she died about the point where, about the age at which my first wife left me. And in a lot of ways, I tried to give her, at least as much sort of freedom and ability to just be herself and not have to worry about financial or real world concerns as much as possible, and to do it right in the sense of like just, well, not leaving, you know. Uh, but I ain't the leaving type. Um, this is not really where I intended this to go. I wanted to reflect more on this 2 year journey of grief or whatever. It's just once I start thinking about, you know, the reasons and whatever, they hook into me. But personally, my grief has not decreased. If anything, it's increased. I think, I don't know, less anger, if there was any. I mean, I don't know. Not really. Maybe at myself. Uh, Maybe I'm blaming myself a little bit less, but not a hell of a lot less. It's more that with my addiction, I've found a way. Sorry. I've found a way to dull everything out most of the time, and that I don't have to think much at all. Now, I'm able to throw myself into this state every, you know, when I'm playing games and talking on camera, or if I go out with people, the few times that I do that, which is a lot less. It's funny, when anyway. But the addiction provides me with an absolute, almost always there, because the fucking game demands so much of me. So much of my time is spent with my eyes glued to the computer, and I'm, watching videos or whatever, and taking the actions that the game requires. But, and I'm watching like 80 Years War videos recently. There's a nice series on them, just hours and hours and hours on it, which is fantastic. Although I'm not getting much out of it because it goes over, everything. really hitting sort of the salient points, particularly importantly. Like every siege, every little story, everything. It's um, but yeah, between watching videos and playing the game for most of my time, I don't have time away to think. But in a way, it makes the moments when I do have time all the more painful and all the more poignant. My walk to dancing and my walk home from dancing, once I kind of sober up enough on the way back, very painful. Doing dishes, just, you know, I've been avoiding that. I did some a couple of days back. Um, oh God. Just about every single little factor in my life comes with a sharp pain of reminder, and it's that pain is enough that I think it drives the must hide. Now, because I have no external contacts for the most part, I don't have an opportunity to, and you know, naturally I'm not really a sociable person in the sense that I don't really seek that out very much, but I need a small amount. The amount she provided was, you know, a little less than I want, but was sufficient to keep me a little bit more sane, maybe. But yeah, it just puts me entirely in a place where there aren't sort of healthy distractions. Now, I consider playing my games to be healthy distractions, but they aren't really. Like, I don't get anything done. I'm not exercising. I'm not, you know, I'm not getting any kind of, other than via the camera, I'm not getting any kind of human connection or anything like that. This is a weird facsimile of, of that kind of connection, because I get to speak, and to some extent then I do get some feedback back and maybe get to chat with people online or whatever via it. But it's not the same as, you know, the kind of interaction that you have when you're actually with someone, walking and talking or whatever. One of the few people that I've been or had been doing things with, and then went snowshoeing this year with her and her boyfriend, but really sort of, like everyone that I deal with in my life, I kind of let things lapse. You know, it's so hard for me to justify the time that I spend away from my addiction now. It's very demanding. But even when I didn't have the addiction, the time away from the sort of comforts of home aloneness, you know, which I could have when my wife was around, right? Like, maybe I'd get a little antsy if we were talking for, you know, a half hour or something, and want to get back to the things that, you know, call to me more. But that was fine because we were around, you know. But very, very different kind of situation from, you know, and if we went out for a walk, that's an hour or an hour and a half or whatever that we went walking, but then I was home again. It wasn't like having to cope with this relatively heavier production. Even prior to my addiction, giving up you know, 6, 8 hours of a day to hang out with someone, that's a big deal. Even if I'm having a great time, even if I'm playing games or going for a walk and talking and having, you know, having a good time overall, the expense of all that just, you know, wore on me, and I felt like, oh man, look at what else I could have gotten done instead. Not that I necessarily would, because even before my addiction, I was spending lots and lots of time sitting in front of the computer watching videos. And, you know, just before it, I was playing a lot of baseball mogul. I would find these things, but I had so much more time, and I had the capability to walk away from things without feeling the kind of pressure that I do from this game. Um, and, you know, but everything in life is becoming harder. The addiction is a major part of that. So like, I really should have gone shopping this week. I did not. Now, it's going to put me in a position where I pretty much have to. Um, Funny thing, I was thinking, well, yesterday was a pretty day. I thought it was Wednesday, but I got up too late. Today I got up on time. It's a little gray out. I'm sorry, I thought yesterday was Tuesday. Um, didn't I? I don't know what the fuck I thought anymore. But at some points I certainly thought it was Tuesday. But I figured, hey, I have a couple of days. When I got up today, I thought it was Wednesday. And I thought that, well, I can go shopping on Thursday if it's a prettier day. Because, again, I got up a little bit earlier. Still slept more than, you know, I had an 8 hour period of sleep what I normally do, which is from like, today it was like from 6 in the morning uh, until 2 p.m. Actually an hour earlier than that, because my clocks, I never did the fall back. I don't play with my clocks. Um, since I lived in Phoenix, I'm like, okay, screw daylight savings. I'm going to live my life outside of it and just coordinate everything else. Uh, and, you know, the world is supposed to come in line with me, but it just never fucking does. Uh, but, yeah, in terms of, you know, how I got confused about the days there, I honestly thought yesterday was Tuesday. I put my garbage out yesterday. Everybody else had their garbage out, which should have been a sign, but it was late enough in the day that it was still plausible. It was plausible that people had their garbage out already, especially at this time of winter. And I woke up, went down to grab my garbage today, and it was still full. I said, I wonder if there was a holiday I'm not used to. I know Martin Luther King Day, which we already had. They don't treat as a holiday for garbage, but for everything else, maybe they do. Or maybe there was something today that I'm not familiar with. I didn't know what. And, yeah, apparently I lost a day in there. And I don't know where it went. I mean, I was very convinced that I had another day this week. I don't know if it matters or not, but I'm feeling, between the addiction, well, mainly the addiction, I'm beginning to lose all touch with reality. Now that's happened to me before, but I was doing healthier things. Well, maybe not always at all. Sometimes I was spamming online heavily. Sometimes I was, I'm thinking back to the last time I lived here, playing, you know, Mountain Blade all day. or Europa Universalis on the computer. Computer games are very, very bad for me. They they tend to, like, I lose all track of reality when I'm playing them. And it's sort of my way of making it through hard times, like when I had time off on holidays or whatever. A lot of times I would just play a computer game the whole time, and it would be like, you know, getting getting really, really fucking drunk for the whole period, or, you know, I'm guessing, like, shooting up heroin over that period, just as a way to escape from it. It never felt like there was pain or anything, but when I was younger, I used to always have uh, these periods of just great boredom and angst and everything. And sometimes that would drive me out for walks or whatever, but it's not like I would settle down and do something, you know, productive in any sense of the word. Um, and the computer's taken that away. I no longer have that kind of, and it's a horrible feeling, um, but it's one that may be healthy and necessary for me, as may the pain. And instead, you know, I'm medicating myself essentially by drowning in a computer game and in watching the YouTube and whatever. What I was going to say though was the person I was going out for walks with, she had a suicide of someone very close to her a long time back, and what she told me was, this isn't the worst of it. This was, you know, a couple months in. This isn't the worst of it. It'll be worse next year. It'll be worse in a year. Honestly, I kind of settled into the dullness of my routine. Yes, there was some hope at that time because I was making connections with people, you know, or reestablishing connections with another person, and going out for walks and whatnot because, hey, I've had this horrible tragedy, and people reach out to you when you're in that kind of circumstance. But my natural inclination is kind of not to try to push more interaction with people. I can kind of manage it. There's sort of one condition that I kind of can manage to interact with people is if there's a place I can go where there are going to be people hanging out that I like, even just one, and it's not too big a job to get there. Sometimes I do that, and sometimes I'll get into a regular habit of it. So when I was in college, that would be the gaming house. Now, the gaming house was my house for a while, where people would just drop in and be there. Where like five of us lived together. Was it five? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And that was okay too, but it kind of sucked that there were people always around, you know, more people than I lived with. But there were the gaming houses that I could go visit and hang out at, and, you know, that would work for there. Later on in Buffalo, I didn't have a gaming house to go to, essentially, or the game club during the day that used to be in the basement of one of the buildings on College. But I had a bar. Well, it was a cafe that every Friday night I would go to, and there was a waitress that I was friends with, and there was basically a gathering of us, and we started playing, you know, family board games there as the place was, you know, while the place was closing down, and then after hours there, which was kind of a fun get together. And it was okay that it was a sort of semi-scheduled event, but it wasn't like I wasn't required to be there. It was, I gotta go down and see what's going on, that kind of thing. And then moving back here, there was the game store where I could stop by, and there would be someone who was there that I knew. Now, it was kind of magical that I ended up knowing the people, any of the people, but, that people already knew me. And so I ended up knowing people who worked there. And that was just magical fortune. But now it's moved, there's someone else there. It's a lot further away since I moved to this house. And also there's no payoff. I wandered in one day and there's some new guy stocking the shelves and no one in the place because it was pandemic time, and the place looked completely different. It was less and less focused towards, trying to have in-store gaming and more towards I don't know what. But so that kind of went away. Just getting off my hill is a fairly major task. And the idea of, it's so unlikely that I'll form any kind of connections with people. So, sure, there's a bar that's kind of a nice place. It's a bar and restaurant type place. I did karaoke there one night, the only time I've ever done it. That's kind of right at the bottom of the hill. We're talking a 25-minute walk, which is about the limit of what I can do. But I don't have any established connection there. I went there, I didn't, make any kind of connection with anyone there in a couple of visits. Mainly I've gone there for food, but they had a decent deal on tacos on Taco Tuesday. But and if I'm out, I stop in there. And there's, one waiter who kind of recognizes me, but there's no one, that I've connected with enough to talk with, to feel comfortable enough to feel like there'd be any reason to go there and just hang out. The idea of just going to a bar to hang out, because again, 99% at least of people, I just feel no desire to be around, to talk to, whatever. And at least I think so, It's hard to tell because the people who approach or who start a conversation, those are going to be very unlike me, except for in some incredibly rare situations. And then those who don't, well, how do you get a couple of introverts to meet? Well, especially if, like me, and like the people that I often do find connections with who are introverted, they almost feel, we both almost feel that, more than almost, that it's an imposition, that no one has the right to communicate with someone they don't know, kind of. So that's hard. So anyway, I was running okay a year ago. I was still working. Life wasn't great. I had stopped going out, for walks, stopped really dealing with people the way I had the first few months. But I had my work, I had the discussions I had to have on the phone there every day. I had a regular schedule. I'm going to swap batteries. So, that was sort of the existence that I expected and expressed pretty much as soon as my wife died, which was, great, the same old shitty life, except, my life was not great. It's not like everything was perfect or anything like that. But it was the same old shitty life, lacking anything to really make it worthwhile, but worse, even more alone and even more, no one to really care about. Like, in some ways, the reason I was working, the reason I moved to this house, the reason that I had to keep working because, she was a definite expense, was, instead of retiring, was really her. And but that was okay. That structure was helping me, and in that year afterwards, I was still miserable, but I'm always miserable, just still more miserable, whatever. Actually, kind of around that time, I thought I was making a new friend. Turns out not terribly much so. Yeah, he's an okay guy. It's just not particularly right. And then kind of early in the year, I was still going out and going occasionally for walks with people or whatever. I think. I don't know. I don't remember anything. Yeah, I think so. And then, when I got laid off, that took away all the structure. Gave me more time that I had to fill, and as always, I fill it badly. My natural inclination is towards things that aren't really going to help. It's not going out and meeting people. I hate doing that. Right? I can and going out. Like if I go out for a walk or whatever, quite often it's kind of, there's an overlay of, well, nothing's going to change in your life if you don't meet people, if you don't make friends or something like that. And given that it's like, I never reach out and ask a friend, hey, do you want to do something? Right? Until I'm incredibly comfortable with them. It has to be a situation where I'm seeing someone several times a week to kind of feel like I can impose on their time at all. Or to feel like I want to. It's almost like there has to be that kind of familiarity for me to want to be continually familiar with someone. And I'm not just talking about, a romantic situation or whatever. I've had friendships with other guys that were that had that same kind of nature, where if we were seeing, if we were regularly hanging out, then I would call and say, hey, you want to go for a walk, or just stop by or whatever, the same way that I had with like the gaming house or a bar or whatever. If I'm used to the people there enough, if the situation feels enough like home, then I feel comfortable putting that imposition in. Just like I would, run downstairs and talk to my wife, when something struck me or whatever. But I wouldn't do that if I had like random roommates or something. I wouldn't impose in that way, and I might not even do it. I might not even bring anything up with them if we were just sort of sharing the house and like they were in the kitchen doing something. I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't have anything to converse with. They're not close enough to me already. It has to be that kind of like I just. I think I may have done a video on this. I know I intended to, but I don't know what's been back. I know I've mentioned it before, which is that for me, small talk is sort of the most intimate stuff, in the sense that I have no reason to engage in small talk with anyone. Like, I hate it. Unless it's just a means of passing time with someone I already care about. Like, you know, there's no pressing, important conversation to have. Nothing's really sparked. You don't want to have deep conversations with people all the time. But it ranks lower than verbal play and stuff like that, which I'm much more likely to do. On the other hand, you know, if there's oh yeah, at work this happened, you know, this is interesting. I do want to share those things with someone that I'm that close with. I have no desire of sharing the banality of my existence, the little things, with, at least in an interactive fashion. The video, I kind of do. Because I feel like the video is my replacement for that kind of close friendship. And to a large extent, it is my social experience. But yeah, I have no desire to have that kind of discussion with someone that I barely know. You know, how about the weather? Yeah. But almost anything. Oh, my battery's not charging over there. Anyway, things have definitely gotten a lot worse for me by any objective evaluation that you could make. I can't even keep track of the fucking day. My sleeping schedule, I've become entirely nocturnal, which means that it's harder for me to cope with things. My coping mechanism, so my avoidance mechanisms for coping, you know, I apply for jobs and then I hide from my email because I'm afraid that I have to do something because of it. Mail is piling up. That is the tax time problem. I get so much shit for taxes that there's probably stuff in my pile of tax stuff that I have to, that maybe I misconsidered or whatever. But I'm finding myself when I bring the mail up, even if I know something is something, putting it aside and saying, I don't even want to open it, I'm avoiding it, I don't want to deal with it. So things like the bills, I move bills, I still bring them into my bedroom and they get done within the day. But, it used to be I'd just rip it open, look at it, and I'd put it aside if I needed to pay it and wasn't in the mood I wasn't in a position to do so, like, just playing a game or whatever. But avoidance is becoming more and more part of my existence. I'm entering into just these horrible habits that I've been in before, but I see less and less reason, to go on. An example is avoiding shopping. wasn't avoiding shopping anywhere near the way I do now, and I'm still not as bad as I was last time I lived here. I think, I don't know. But it gets to the point where it's like I'm just not able to convince myself to go out and to do anything about it. Yet, on the other hand, people talk about, well, you can order online or whatever. I don't know. Somehow there's if I can't do this, I don't deserve to eat. There's that kind of feeling. And it's not like I'm going to starve. I'm a hoarder and a stockpiler of food. But it is like, well, I can't just make a sandwich or throw something in the toaster oven. I gotta fry an egg. I don't know if that's worth it. This isn't exactly, I envisioned what this video would be like, and this is not what I expected of it. Starting around the 9th or 8th, I was considering doing this. Like, well, let's wait and see, And obviously Friday, I went dancing on the night of the anniversary of her death, whatever you want to put it, which I guess somewhere in me there was some hope that would be a transition moment of some kind. I don't know why, but a couple of weeks back, I pledged myself to whatever the hell it is that lives in this hill, and to the dance, to see if the two aligned and whatever, and if it just took me in a more complete way. And I don't think anything was terribly different, but it did sort of break something in me for nothing to have changed. There's always those little breaks. Like every time I go for a walk and think, if you don't get out of the house and do something, it's a pretty day, you'll enjoy yourself. If you don't get out and do something, you're never going to meet anyone. Nothing's ever going to change in your life. And I go out, and sometimes I just have an okay time. I have a good time. I enjoy the walk. I enjoy the thinking that I'm doing. Quite often, though, the vast majority, 90% of the time, I come back and I feel like I wasted a large portion of a day. And never does any of this wonderful stuff happen that could happen. Never do I meet someone. Sometimes, if I'm lucky, I find a pair of shoes, or I find some food, or something like that, and that's good enough. Finding stuff is about the best I could ever hope for, and even that's rarer and rarer. In part because of where I am, because if I find a piece of furniture, I can't bring it up here. And nobody seems to throw anything useful out in my neighborhood every now and then. But it's much more sparsely occupied area that I'm used to. Before this, I had been living in apartment complexes, essentially, or the condo, where people were moving in and out, and there was constantly furniture, even in good shape, being put in the trash areas. And in other times, I lived in kind of student slums where crappy stuff would show up. Once I lived next to an office furniture store where slightly broken or damaged things, that's how I ended up with, for a while, having a collection of office chairs. Actually, of office furniture in general, but the office chairs were the big thing. It was great for gaming. Everybody's got their own nice wheelie chair at a conference table. Not a nice nice one. And I had it fixed with some paper and whatnot, as well as bolts, because it was bent in a weird way. But yeah, I don't find much stuff. Now, there's food up at the pavilion when people have a wedding or some other kind of celebration up there. And I had finally started getting my wife hooked on the idea of found food. It really started when I brought home like half a cake or something that I had found in the trash, because she had always kind of looked at me askance when I found things in the trash and would want to eat them. But, you know, once you take that one step, and she loved her sweets and cakes and stuff like that. So, yep, she shared in that. And then it became, you know, I'd come home, I'd go up there and bring back, you know, a thing of fried rice or whatever. That she learned to trust that I wasn't bringing home rotting food, and that, yeah, there's actually good stuff that shows up, stuff that, you know, isn't our normal diet and therefore is more interesting. On the bright side, you know, I'm having physical conditions that are leading me to think that maybe I don't have that much longer to live. But, you know, they've shown up before, and then they fade away. And I'm just not one of them lucky ones who gets to die young, I guess. Yeah, I really don't. It's like hope is all gone, and now I can't even keep track of what day it is, which wouldn't have been a big deal. Would not have been a big deal, you know, 15 years ago or whatever. Well, longer than that, right? Jesus, 20 years ago. You know, like when my wife first left me. Before that, anytime before that, I would regularly not know what day it was. Mainly because I wasn't on the computer all the time. But now I have the date right there every day. So this is the first time I've completely lost track of what day it was, and lost a day in quite a long time. And I don't even know how it happened. But it did. And in a way, that's kind of what convinced me to make this video that I really should have been made over the weekend. But now it's Thursday, and tomorrow's dancing again. Even that's not doing it for me. I don't know. But it's I must do, I guess. All right, up it goes. Depressive, and, you know, sometimes I even think I should go so far as to, like, take a drastic step, a truly drastic step, like go volunteer for something. That's been the case ever since she died. But, you know, to me that's just like work. I mean, if I'm going to take that step, I might as well get a job and get paid for it. I don't know. The idea, though, being that helping people is a good thing, and if I choose the right kind of people to help, maybe, you know, maybe that would cause good things to happen. I don't know. But even just inside me internally.